Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United news and transfer news show on the channel. We've got a few things to talk about. Obviously, yesterday's game versus Crystal Palace, which honestly, guys, it feels like a loss, doesn't it? I mean, Casemiro getting the yellow, it doesn't really give me any confidence going into the game at the Emirates. And then obviously, conceding an absolutely banging free kick. I'll give that to Elise. Fantastic. I don't know why he didn't celebrate, to be honest. Anyone know why? Fantastic free kick, but concede in the 90th minute. Half time, we're 1-0 up, so comfortable, look good. Casemiro yellow, conceded that goal. It really feels like a loss. And I did say in my 5 things we learned, if you watched that, it shows that the standards have already been raised. You probably take a point versus Palace last season because we were fucking dreadful. And now it feels like a loss, and now we feel absolutely angry with ourselves that we didn't go and get the 3 points. And Ten Hag came out and he spoke about the second half and that it was not good enough for Manchester United, because it wasn't. And Ten Hag was spot on. But there is some news coming out. There's a story coming out from Italy that United are in advanced talks to sign 6 million star as Ten Hag closes in on another signing. However, I would take that story with a pinch of salt, but they're being quite confident with their story that United are going to sign a right back, which for me doesn't make sense because Wan-Bissaka's been absolutely fantastic and was man of the match. So we will get into that. We will cover that. There's also news on Takeover, American US investment companies potentially being the biggest rival to Jim Ratcliffe. We've been hearing that there's obviously the Middle East, and there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East regarding the takeover. But the news coming in is that actually the main rivals could be the US investors that were not fortunate to get Chelsea. Now, some of the potential investors being linked to Manchester United, guys, that you won't be happy with them. They're not, some of the names we've been linked to, I'm not going to lie to you, they're not the best names. They do make me a bit worried. And I'm going to get into all the potential bidders to Manchester United, some over full sale, some over potential investment. There's a lot of speculation. We're hearing a lot of news on Dubai this, Dubai that, but then we are hearing some conflicting reports that Dubai do not want to overpay for United, and because the Glazers are asking for such a ridiculous amount of money that actually, would we get Dubai or not? There's a lot of conflicting reports going out about Dubai and the Manchester United takeover as well, but I do want to get into. But first of all, people, please do smash that like button, and if you have not already, of course, subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new. It would be really appreciated as well. We have to be wary that fatigue could be a factor. Again, we looked a bit flat at times, and you're absolutely spot on. And I do want to talk about that. I do want to talk about the games coming up. I do want to talk about the news as well. But there's a lot of stories going in and about that I do want to get into as well. We spoke about Sancho in my video earlier today, but I will give you a little bit of an update on Sancho. But there's reports coming in that the Apple rumours are fake, said Yash. And honestly, I wouldn't be totally shocked if the Apple rumours were fake. We were linked to Apple really strongly, remember? Really, really strong link to Apple. It was Apple this, Apple that, United getting Apple, la-di-la-di-la-di-la. And then, the Athletics said that Apple aren't interested in United, and, the Apple rumors were all made up. Amazon have interest, Dubai have interest, a lot of people in the Middle East have interest, but a lot of the US investors have interest in United. And as I've said, we do not want US investors. US investors isn't the ideal solution, but there is quite a few US investors interested in United. Also in today's video, I do want to dive into Jesse Lingard's interview. Jesse Lingard did do an interview talking about United, talking about Murta. And although, like with Lingard, I think he should have left. The thing with Lingard is I'm very conflicted on Lingard, because I look at the Lingard situation, like, you were fantastic at West Ham and you didn't leave. And you should have left for West Ham after that loan spell. And should have gone to West Ham on a permanent. But then Ollie lied to him and Ollie said he was going to play. I just think, you don't know what goes on. Lingard should have left. He should have gone to West Ham. And when it wasn't going well for him the season after his loan at West Ham, I didn't have much sympathy for Lingard, in the sense of, I'm like, well, you should have gone to West Ham. In my eyes, that was partly Lingard's own fault. He should have gone to West Ham on loan. However, Ollie did say to Lingard, stay, I'll play you, and they never played him. And Lingard did an interview about basically how awfully United treat players, which we know. There was nothing Lingard said in that interview that we didn't really know deep down. How basically United blocked his loan move to Newcastle. We wanted game time. John Murta didn't care. He basically goes in a poor treatment with United and said that he turned to alcohol when he got into bad habits by United. And towards the end of the season, he was very depressed. And I think that probably rubbed off on the mood of players like Rashford, Bruno, Sancho. Sancho really struggled at the end of last season, so did Rashford. And I think, when Lingard's struggling, who's your best mate, and Man United's toxic environment and all of that, it probably did rub off on other players. Man United got completely toxic towards the end. And I will dive into the Lingard interview. I will show you some clips of that as well. But I do want to, first of all, get into the news. There's a few stories going about. Don't cry for me, Lingard. People, I have a bit of sympathy for Lingard. But at the end of the day, I think he should have left a lot earlier. I think he should have just gone with West Ham. I don't know why he stayed. And Alex B said Lingard should be over the moon. He got the minutes and chances he's got at United far more than he deserves. And you're spot on. Like, I do like Lingard. You know, he tried, but yeah, he got way too many. Like, when you seriously sit there and think about it, the amount of minutes Lingard got, like, did he actually deserve the level of minutes he got at United? Probably not as well. And Saeed says we need a midfielder or else top four will be difficult. Todd Bowie's doing real life FIFA career mode. Yeah, I mean, what is going on with Chelsea? What is going on with Todd Bowie? He is generally doing real life FIFA career mode as well. But anyway, I want to get into the takeover news. I want to get into the Lingard news. I want to get into the transfer news. I want to get into some things that Bruno Fernandes has come out and said as well. But Amazon have gone quiet. I don't think Amazon are actually going to go for United, but they said basically the Athletic said don't rule out Amazon. Don't rule out Amazon in the plan for United. And Apple want full PL broadcasting rights. Can't see them owning a club at the moment. Exactly. I mean, if Apple owned United, they'd have a shit ton of money, but it would be difficult as well. And I wanted Casemiro to be rested. We might have lost without him yesterday. It's a difficult one because we didn't overly dominate Palace, and if we hadn't started Casemiro, would we have lost? Do you know what worried me actually was when he brought Fred on? I thought, imagine if Fred gets a yellow card as well. I'd absolutely lost it. And why don't United bin off Europa League and focus on finishing as high as possible in the Premier League? Because I think if we beat Barcelona, Europa League's a trophy, we're comfortable that we can win. And I think, Ten Hag wants to win it all. He doesn't want to bin it off. I think if Ten Hag was to bin off one, it would probably be the FA Cup. Play a really B team versus Reading. We're in the Carabao Cup. As we're going far in the Carabao Cup, we might as well go for the Carabao Cup. I think if Ten Hag was thinking of binning off anything, I think it would be probably the Carabao Cup, to be honest. I don't think he'll be binning off in the Europa League. I think, especially if we beat Barcelona, I think we will go far. I think Arsenal are the biggest competition for the Europa League. Now, I want to get into a few things as well. I want to get into all of that. David De Gea said after the game on the results of the first part of the season, he said, we are a much better team than we were before. We played together. Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to fight for the team. I believe in this team. We have great players. David De Gea says that this team is different because this team wants to play together and fight for each other. And De Gea's actually went on a massive rant. De Gea was pissed off after the match. David De Gea went in after the match. And basically, and I think David De Gea made a good point here. He was saying, we have this midweek game, but Arsenal don't, and one of our players gets suspended because of this midweek game. Yeah, why was the Palace game scheduled now? Like, when you actually think about it, why was the Palace game scheduled now when we had like a big week break like 2 weeks ago? Why wasn't it scheduled then? Why do they schedule the Palace game just before the Arsenal game? And why does Casemiro getting a yellow card in a rescheduled game mean he misses the Arsenal game? And De Gea's point was basically Arsenal didn't play midweek, so they don't have to worry about any players being out in yellows. But we do because we have to play mid-meet. And De Gea was pissed. He said that Casemiro shouldn't be out. They shouldn't be rescheduling this just before Arsenal. I tell you what, Arsenal are going to win the freaking league because I feel like every single decision just falls in Arsenal's favour at the moment, doesn't it? It just jumps in Arsenal's lap as well. And Bruno and De Gea were not happy about that whatsoever as well. But what also is interesting is, as of now, the ban's over. Basically, if Fred gets a yellow card versus Arsenal, if Casemiro didn't get a yellow card versus Palace, he'd be fine to get a yellow card versus Arsenal because you've got a 5 yellow card rule. I think in 19 games or 18, you've got a 5 yellow card rule in 18 or 19 games or something, yeah? And officially, as of Arsenal, that threshold no longer continues. So the frustrating thing is, basically, if Casemiro had got a yellow card versus Arsenal, he wouldn't have even been in trouble. But we were literally a day away from the threshold. We're a day away from the threshold, which is so frustrating as well. Because any other day, we'd be playing in that Arsenal match, which absolutely winds me up. But anyway, I could sit here and rant all day. And look, I have to say, Ten Hag said this: we beat Arsenal without Casemiro at home. McTominay played. It was McTominay and Eriksen when we beat Arsenal. And look, obviously Arsenal didn't have Thomas Partey. Obviously, Arsenal are probably a much stronger side now than when we last played them, but we're also a much stronger side than when we last played Arsenal. And one thing I trust in Ten Hag, and one thing I believe in Ten Hag, and I will say this before I get into the news, is that Ten Hag is a big game manager. Ten Hag knows how to deal with a big game pressure. If there's a manager in a big game that I feel that you can trust on, you can rely on, I feel like Ten Hag is that guy. I honestly feel like Ten Hag is that guy. He's beaten Pep, he's beaten Klopp, he's beaten Arteta, he's beaten him before. I think Ten Hag will know we don't have Casemiro. Ten Hag will know that's a big loss. I think Ten Hag will be wary about Casemiro. I think he'll know it's a big loss. But also, I look at Erik Ten Hag and I go, I trust this guy. I trust my manager. I trust Erik Ten Hag. And I think he'll have a plan versus Arsenal. And look, there's a part of me that goes, are we going to be 3-4-0 down to Arsenal about our best players? there's a part of me that's like, we could be absolutely fucked and we could go 3-4-0 down. But I just believe that Ten Hag will do something. I don't know if it's going to be McTominay and Fred. I don't know if it's going to be McTominay and Eriksen. I don't know if he's going to try something different and stick Lisandro Martinez in midfield. But I have a lot of trust in Ten Hag, and I do have a feeling that Ten Hag's going to pull in a tactical masterclass. And I do think it being at the Emirates is the most difficult thing for me, followed by Casemiro being out. I still think we can get a result versus Arsenal, because I just think Ten Hag will look at this and think about this, and he'll have a clear plan like he did last time we played Arsenal as well. But guys, keep smashing the likes as well. 3 points will remain in London on Sunday. We are busy with midweek games. Arsenal is feasting, waiting for us. I am worried about Arsenal games. It's rigged for Arsenal to win the league. It feels like that as well. But you know what? Do we actually want City to beat Spurs? Because if City beat Spurs, we'll be in a much comfortable position regarding top four. We are quite comfortable in the top four race. And as of next week, we would have played the top two twice. So, I think in the top four race, we'd have played the hardest games. So he says he wants to see Martinez play as a DM versus Arsenal. Casemiro's suspension is a huge loss, and he doesn't want McTominay in the starting 11. And I think a lot of people seem to feel that way. They potentially don't want McTominay to play because he's been awful versus Charlton. He hasn't played much. I would play McTominay and Eriksen in midfield. Even though Fred's been better, I would play McTominay and Eriksen in midfield purely for the fact that with McTominay and Eriksen in midfield, we beat Arsenal the last game. I think we'd almost just have to do what we did in the home game and hope that psychologically we're up for it. One thing I am going to say, and one thing I do believe because we dropped points in this game, because we had a poor second half, Ten Hag will snap into those players. Ten Hag will shout at those players. Ten Hag will snap into those Man United players. And I think that we almost might be more awake for this Arsenal game. I think if we'd have beaten Palace 1-0, we might have gone into that Arsenal game a little bit complacent, a little bit ahead of ourselves. I think now we've dropped those points to Palace, that makes sure these players don't get ahead of themselves. That makes sure these players aren't getting too cocky. I think that makes sure that Ten Hag is there ready to tell the players, no. You drop points to Palace. You need to come and run at Arsenal, beat at Arsenal, and not get complacent. And maybe that'll put more hunger and more determination into the United players ahead of the Arsenal game, which would be what I really like to see as well. And Arsenal still haven't played City, and we've played them twice already, exactly as well. A lot of people say Martin as a DM. Would you play Martin as a DM, guys? Let me know in the chat. I think I will go with McTominay and Eriksen because that's how we beat them last time. But as Yaz says, trust in Ten Hag to do something. And I am nervous for Arsenal as well. What is the internet connection like, people? Is it all right? And some people say Maguire DM. I could think of nothing worse. And could Shaw play DM? No, let's not. I feel like, as much as people say Martin is DM and all that, there's not time for experiments. Martin is at DM and Shaw at centre-back could work because that worked versus Manchester City. Shaw at centre-back. I could risk Shaw at centre-back. Do you want to risk Martinez at DM, take that experiment versus Arsenal of all the sides? Shaw had 2-3 games at centre-back before Ten Hag put him in the City game at centre-back. Do you want to take that risk? Does Ten Hag go 5 at the back? I would be very shocked. I'd be very shocked if Erik Ten Hag went 5 at the back because he's not gone 5 at the back all season. But could he potentially go to 5 at the back without Casemiro? Maybe Malacia left back, Delo or Wan-Bissaka right back, then a back three of probably Luke Shaw, Varane, Martinez, and then a midfield two of, back five and a midfield two of McTominay, Eriksen, and then a front three of maybe Bruno on the right, Rashford on the left, and Martial on the top. I think it'll be interesting to see what Ten Hag does. I would be very shocked if we saw a back five on the Ten Hag, but maybe I feel like he's going to do something different. For the City game, it was kind of an unexpected lineup to the extent that Luke Shaw played centre back, Eriksen played as a 10 and Bruno played on the right and Antony was dropped. I expect that Ten Hag will do something like that versus Arsenal. I feel like Ten Hag will want to make it a little bit complicated, want to make it difficult for Arsenal. I could see Bruno playing on the right. I could see 5 at the back. I think, whatever Ten Hag does, we've got to trust him. And as long as we don't ship 4 or 5 goals, that would be the best case scenario. The last thing I want to see is United absolutely getting battered and thrashed as well. And Leach can play DM with Wan-Bissaka, Shaw, Varane, Malacia in defence, possibly, but he's not played DM for a while. I think if Ten Hag played Leach at DM, then I would trust that Leach will put in a good performance at DM. But, someone's not played there. But the worrying thing is, Man United have very little options at DM. Very, very little options as well. Casemiro is out, and look at this. We're thinking of playing our best centre-back as a DM because we're worried. Man United in January, they need to make sure they get some investment in. And I've said this, I said that we should really be looking at a midfielder on loan in January, like Gravenberch. I know he's not a DM, but in summer, we need to get a midfielder in that's happy to play in that DM role if need be. This summer, we need to get a midfielder in and we need to get a striker in and we need to work on that and we need to get that in ASAP. I would be looking, I've been saying this for a while, Enzo Fernandez or De Jong, because even though they're not DMs, they could play in that DM position if worse comes to worse because they're defensively sound and solid. I'd be looking at one of those players. And then obviously striker Victor Osimhen would be just the general ideal situation. But I do think Now Casemiro is out. It just shows the lack of options United have in midfield, which is worrying as well. And Diego's a Palace fan. What did you make of the Palace game, Diego? I bet you're chuffed with that last-minute goal. I think 1-1 was a fair score, to be fair. I think United were better in the first half. Palace were better in the second. And when would you say it's best to bring Sancho back? We're going to talk about that. Actually. Did you guys watch my video earlier today? If you didn't, that's fine. I'm going to read out the Sancho news, and then I'm going to get into the story on the screen. I'm going to quickly skive through the Sancho news here. So, it was said on Jadon Sancho by Andy Mitten that Jadon Sancho returned to Manchester United first team today. That has been 100% confirmed, and that Jadon Sancho was returning and training with the first team. It was said that Sancho was not playing with the United squad because he wasn't seen fit or mentally fit at the moment for United. He mentally was not there. So Ten Hag and Sancho agreed in November that he was going to take a personal break over the World Cup to go to the Netherlands and train. Sancho also deleted social media and wanted to reset from the day-to-day Manchester United environment, which honestly you can't blame Sancho for doing. Ten Hag then spoke about Jadon Sancho and said, "I would love to have had Jadon Sancho back as soon as possible, but this is a process you can't force. I can't force him, and I have to show patience with Sancho. He's got some hurdles to take, but I think he's in a direction." He said, "Again, I will show patience with Sancho, although I don't have patience because of the lack of opportunities in the front line and players who are available. But Sancho, I believe, can contribute to the Premier League at the highest standard, but I need to give him some patience and time. This is a process for that." Ten Hag also said on Sancho, "There are some processes you can't force, and this is one of them. Football players aren't robots. He's not fit enough, and I mean mentally as well as physically not fit enough as well." But it was said by The Athletic that Sancho was not exiled or dropped from the squad, but the United manager acted, having seen his form as dropping. And I thought this was really interesting because I will get into the video in a sec, but there was so much news going in and around the space that basically Sancho had been exiled for bad attitude. There was rumour after rumour after rumour. So many fake news, so many fake rumours that Sancho had been exiled from the squad. Sancho had done this, Sancho had done that, Sancho this, Sancho that. Was so many rumours going about that Ten Hag dropped Sancho for bad behaviour and an attitude problem and stuff like that. And none of that is true. And The Athletic have confirmed that. You know, all these idiot journalists on Twitter, they're fake journalists that buy a blue tick to try and pretend they're a real journalist and make up some stories for clicks, must be looking like absolute idiots saying Sancho was dropped for an attitude problem. Sancho's not playing because he got an attitude problem. He fell out with Ten Hag. When Ten Hag comes out publicly and said that Sancho's not right mentally, he's struggling with family issues, he's struggling with mental health issues. I bet you, Ross Harwood, and all you other fake journalists with your fake blue tick on Twitter must feel like a twat, because Ten Hag's not one to hold back. When there was behaviour issues with Garnacho, Ten Hag called him out. When there was behaviour issues with Ronaldo, Ten Hag called him out. There was not behaviour issues with Jadon Sancho. He was struggling mentally. His mental health was struggling. But a few fake journalists on Twitter who got no connections to United, no real journalist connections, and will tweet absolute crap for some clicks and likes because they're absolutely messed in the head, will then pretending that Sancho had been dropped because he's got a poor attitude. And that was not the case. And Ten Hag's confirmed that. He confirmed that he saw Sancho's form was dropping. He was confused and he sent him on a training camp. So I hope that those idiots feel like twats. But Sancho will be back very, very soon. There was actually pictures. I'll show you this now, actually. I'll get the Twitter up quickly. There was a lot of pictures of Jadon Sancho in and about Manchester United training. I went and liked one. As you can see, Sancho is back in training. United plug in all the pictures. They put loads of pictures on here of obviously Bruno and Rashford in training. As you can see, all the players in training today. Very, very cold, but it's good to see Jadon Sancho there in training, very much fully involved in training. Now, Erik ten Hag did say it's very unlikely that Jadon Sancho will be back in time for the Arsenal match. He doesn't want to rush him back, but I think he could be back maybe next week. I think we could see him on the bench maybe next week. And as I said in my video earlier today, I think that, we need some competition for Anthony. I don't think Anthony's been good enough. And I think we do massively need a bit of competition for Anthony over at United. And I think that right wing spot, Jadon Sancho should know it. That right wing spot very much up for grabs. Alex B said, Scott's been terrible lately. That's my concern. I like Sancho's passing ability, which could work in the midfield with Shaw at centre-back. And yeah, this is the thing. If it was any other game, if this was a game against Nottingham Forest, or if this was a game against Bournemouth, I'd love to see Shaw at centre-back and Martinez DM. If this was any other game, I'd be going, all right, Luke Shaw's playing centre-back, Martinez is playing DM. That is what we're going to do. Bish, bash, bosh. But because of the situation of the game, because it's Arsenal, because it's such a high-risk game against, the best team in the league right now in current form, away at the Emirates. If it's at home at Old Trafford, I'm more confident. But when you go to the Emirates, I never back United at the Emirates. The Emirates is a fortress. Like, you know, I do sit and I do worry about this United game. As I do go, you know what? You know, I think, you know, I'd like to see Martinez, Diam and Shaw centre back. I think that's a risk. And I think if, you know, we're playing someone lower down in the league, Southampton, Everton, I'd take that risk. But I'm like, is it worth taking that risk with Arsenal playing? But at the same time, you know, do we want to take the risk? I guess maybe playing McTominay is a risk. You know, even though McTominay and Eriksen beat Arsenal last time, maybe playing McTominay is bigger risk as playing Martinez out of position, because McTominay has been so shambolic lately, as Alex has said. You know, do you go? I'm going to do a poll. I'm going to go over to the YouTube people. I'm going to do a poll. Like, is it more of a risk to play McFred because we know how bad McFred are, or to play Martinez out of position? Because we know that realistically, unless McTominay turns up and has one of his Sedan-esque games where, you know, McTominay is just absolutely fantastic, and every now and then McTominay will turn up fantastic for Manchester United out of nowhere, we're very much relying on McTominay to turn up, because if McTominay doesn't turn up, then United are in trouble. So I'm going to ask you now, who would you play in midfield? I'm going to do a poll, midfield versus Arsenal. So a poll is about to pop up in the live chat in just a second. There's Sandro with maybe Shaw or Maguire at centre-back, Scott McTominay. I'm going to ask you guys, because obviously I think Fred and Eriksen are you in good form. Everyone wanted to start, but would you rather Lissandro play? Would you rather McTominay play? Do you get voting in the poll? I'd be really surprised if he starts McTominay and Fred. I think the thing is, I think you've got to start one of McTominay and Fred, but you can't start them both. I've always said this with McFred. There's a good player in Fred. There's a really good player in Fred. And we see it every now and then. But when Fred plays with McTominay, you might as well not play him, because when Fred plays with McTominay, he's just absolutely shambolic, people. I do not want to see Fred playing with McTominay for a while as well. McTominay will play CDM. Imagine what it will do to his confidence if Ten Hag drops him. I think that McTominay will play DM. I do think that McTominay wants to prove himself under Ten Hag, but I have very little confidence. McTominay versus Thomas Partey, I have very little confidence in Scott McTominay, but every now and then McTominay will just turn up and put in an absolute 10 out of 10 performance, so you never know. You never know. And I also will say this as well. Potentially Sancho could be on the bench. I will talk about if Sancho will play for Arsenal or not, but I will say this as well. Like, Ten Hag knows how to manage big games, so I'm going to trust Ten Hag to make the right decision. People are saying for Arsenal, De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Shaw, Malacia, Martinez, Eriksen, Fred, Bruno, Rashford. Wow. I mean, that could be an interesting one there. Lack of pace. I do think Martial will be important. I know a lot of people have gone off Martial because he's so unreliable. You know, he got injured. You know, he got injured coming out the womb. I literally saw someone go on Twitter, Martial picked up an injury coming out the womb. You know, Martial was so injury prone, but I do think Martial would be good for the Arsenal game. And someone else just said, Alice here, Alice, kicking out Martial will bring positivity. I think that we need Martial for the Arsenal game because of his pace, and I think we missed him on the bench. And Martial was the one begging to play against Man City when he wasn't fully fit. I think Martial's very misunderstood in the fan base. I will say this, I don't think Martial's been good enough. I don't think Martial's been consistent enough for the last few years. But I think the one thing, fans assume that Martial doesn't want to be here. Fans assume Martial's a virus because of his body language. He doesn't, sometimes when he plays, he doesn't look like he's trying. But he, in fact, before the Manchester derby, begged Ten Hag to play. Even though he didn't train for a week, even though he had a slight injury, he begged Ten Hag to play. And Ten Hag took him off because he wasn't good enough in the Manchester derby, and a big part of that is because he's injured. But he was practically begging, you know, Ten Hag to play. I think he wants to play. He wants to be here. And I think Martial can be a bit misunderstood in that sense of, I think people just assume he doesn't want to be here. And I just think it's the way he presents himself, his body language. I do think Martial is very happy to be at United involved. But people, Sancho is back as well. People saying Sancho's another Lingard. I completely disagree. I will say this about Sancho now. What Sancho did in the Bundesliga was absolutely incredible. And I will say this, and I've said it before. Sancho came to United under Ollie. When Sancho came to United, he just got a shit ton of racist abuse after the Euros. Imagine going to the Euros with England, not really playing that much, and when you do play, you miss a penalty, and you've got loads of people racially abusing you. Then you go to a completely new club after getting all this racial abuse, after getting your confidence knocked due to lack of game time in the Euros. You come to this new club, and the manager that signed you, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, isn't even playing you. He's playing Greenwood, Ronaldo, and Rashford, and he's not even playing you. He's not even giving you the minutes. And then Carrick comes in, and you play 2 games under Carrick, and you're brilliant. And then adios, Carrick. Then Rangnick comes in, and then, you know what? He started looking good under Rangnick. I remember when we played Leeds, he had a few good games under Rangnick. He was unlucky not to get called up for the England squad. Come, you know, March time, he started to look really, really good under Rangnick. And then, obviously, shit hit the fan. There was a point, I think, really in March time where Sancho had a very good February, and there was a point in March time where United went from, like, we were iffy under Rangnick, but we weren't god awful the first 2 months under Rangnick. We weren't good awful, but then there was a period where it just went shit under Rangnick. And every single United player, Luke Shaw, that's a fantastic player, that was fantastic the season before Rangnick, and was fantastic this season, was crap. Rashford was crap. Bruno was crap. You know, three of our best players this season, Rashford, Bruno, and Shaw, were crap last season. You know, everyone was crap last season, bar De Gea, Ronaldo, Fred. And I think Sancho just fell into that trap because he started to pick up form under Rangnick, and then the whole squad went crap, bar Fred, Ronaldo, De Gea. Like, even our best performers like Rashford, Bruno, Luke Shaw were crap. Even Varane wasn't particularly very good. And look how fantastic they've been this season. Even Dalot was iffy. Wan-Bissaka was awful. You know, and these players are playing good now under Ten Hag. And I believe that's the same with Sancho. He's come to United. He's been here a year. You know, he's had a few injury issues. He's not had a consistent run of games. You know, he's in a new league. He's come off the back of racist abuse. But he played under 4 different managers. He's had to adapt to 4 different styles. But he played a United squad that wasn't sustainable. If Jadon Sancho had gone to United squad and joined United when we're in a very sustainable position, when we're looking very good on the right-hand side, and you know, he might have fitted in and slotted in well. Like, look what he did at Dortmund. If Jadon Sancho had gone to maybe Arsenal of this season, I think he'd have slotted in very well with the way Arsenal are playing. And I think now Ten Hag's getting us to play better football. Now Ten Hag's getting us to play as a team with clear style patterns of play, and with Sancho very clearly being an intellectual baller. I do have the theory that Jadon Sancho is going to come back in. He might be a bit rusty at first. He's not played a lot. He's not been mentally there. But I do think that if Wan-Bissaka can start looking like a good footballer, I have every belief that Jadon Sancho will. I think that Jadon Sancho came to United at the wrong time. He wasn't in the best mindset. He's worked under 4 managers. He got all this abuse because he didn't get as many goals and assists. He said social media on and bullying him. He didn't get picked for the England squad. He was being bullied. When Ronaldo was doing the interview, they were saying that Sancho was dancing. The amount of shit that Sancho has gone through since he's joined United, online abuse, racist abuse, 4 managers, you know, I just think, you know what? No wonder he's struggling. No wonder he has. And I think I have the patience for Sancho because I watched him in the Bundesliga and I know what he can do. And I saw glimpses of it in pre-season. I saw glimpses of it under Rangnick. And Ten Hag believes in Sancho. Ten Hag has shown Sancho so much patience. He's dealt with the Sancho situation so well because Ten Hag himself purely believes that there is something there for Jadon Sancho. Ten Hag believes that there's a player there in Jadon Sancho. And, you know, I'm Ten Hag, I trust. And Ten Hag, I believe. And I think for me, I think Jadon Sancho will be back. And what was the reason for Sancho's mental health? I think family issues, and I think social media was also kind of distracting him. He had a lot of family issues. We will talk about football players' mental health because obviously the Jesse Lingard interview's been released where he spoke about his mental health as well. And Erik Ten Hag does include physically whenever he mentions Sancho. He did not look out of shape earlier in the season to me. Yeah, he said physically and mentally not there, but I think maybe because he's mentally not there, it's affected him physically. I think that's what Ten Hag means when referring to it as well. And I believe we had lost another home match. Your away fans turned out in great numbers and atmosphere. I have to say, the Man United away fans are always fantastic. I heard the Glazer out-chance last game as well. And Jim Ratcliffe equals Glazers. I'll tell you what, out of all I will talk about new owners in a second. Let me know what the results are in the poll so far as well. But basically, out of the potential new owners in the bidding process for United, Jim Ratcliffe looks like the best because obviously we haven't, the Middle Eastern buyers haven't been confirmed. That will be confirmed very, very soon. But I tell you what, you know, there's some American companies wanting to invest in United, and I'd much rather have Jim Ratcliffe than some American company that's Glazers 2.0, and I think most people would be the same as well. We need Martial back desperately over Wout for this match. Yeah, for this Arsenal match, Martial fits it a lot more with Wout with his pace. I think Arsenal will have more possession. We will want to get Arsenal on the counter. I think, you know, Sancho will suit this game a lot more as well. I hope we have Sancho back for us. I think a good game for Sancho to be back for would be the Reading or Forest games. I know Forest is a semi-final, but I think if you throw him back in the deep end versus Arsenal, it's not going to be very nice. I think if you have Sancho and you can give him a go versus Reading, off the bench versus Reading, you give him a run in. I think that would be perfect for Sancho. A nice game to sort of run him in there on the right-hand side as well. And I think we should be trying Sancho on the right-hand side to really challenge Anthony, because Anthony has been a bit one-dimensional at the moment. Anthony's very one-footed. He's slowing down play in transition. Anthony needs to be worked on. I'm not worried about Anthony. I do like Anthony, and I do think there could be a good player in Anthony. And I think it's the first season it's going to be iffy. If you look at all of Anthony's flaws, it can be worked on. You know, very much like Ronaldo in his first season. But I do think United need to, you know, give Anthony some competition. I think Sancho will very much be there to go ahead and challenge Anthony on the right wing. And Sancho was pictured back in training today. Sancho also returned to training yesterday, and I think that's very good. And I think, you know, Erik Ten Hag showed Sancho a lot of patience, because Erik Ten Hag truly believes that Sancho can do something as well. And how do we know Martial's begging to play? Because Ten Hag said it after the City game. Ten Hag was asked why he took Martial at half-time, and he said Martial wasn't 100% fit, but he was begging to play before the game, and I knew how important Martial would be, but it wasn't quite there. Like, Ten Hag confirmed that Martial actually begged to play before the Manchester derby. He was begging Ten Hag to play. He really wanted to play. I was taking a drink of water as well. And only players physically capable of playing DM are Delo, Wan-Bissaka, and Malacia. I personally disagree with that. I think Martinez, if we're going to have to play someone out of position at DM, I would play Martinez. I feel like Malacia could potentially do a job at DM, but if you were going to play anyone at DM, I would probably play with Sandro Martinez. I would probably just go McTominay and Eriksen for this Arsenal game and take the risk as well. But I don't know what Ten Hag's going to do. I really don't know what Ten Hag's going to do. Will he play Martinez DM? Will he play McTominay in there? Will he play McFred? Will he play Eriksen? You know, I could even see Ten Hag putting Bruno on the right. I could see him putting Rashford on the left, Martial up top if he's fit. If not, Rashford up top with Garnacho on the left. And then potentially Eriksen as a 10 and maybe Fred and McTominay behind. Or Lissandro and McTominay behind with Luke Shaw at centre-back. It's going to be iffy. I think Saka will cause Malacia problems, but Malacia did deal very well with Mahrez. Malacia's been quite impressive defensively. It's a big question mark on what he's going to do as well. Have we seen Jesse's podcast? We will talk about the Jesse Lingard podcast because basically Jesse Lingard did reveal that Newcastle. You remember this? Do you remember this? We spoke about this on the channel if you used to watch me back in January time. But Jesse Lingard was very close to moving to Newcastle. Ralph Rangnick had told Jesse Lingard he can move to Newcastle. Rangnick had said, yes, Lingard, you can move to Newcastle. I'm okay with that. Lingard was on the verge of joining Newcastle, and Mr. Bish Bash Boss Bastard John Murtagh stopped Lingard moving to Newcastle at the final minute. Lingard won a game time. Rangnick had told Lingard he wasn't going to play him. We remember talking about this, and Lingard was denied this move to Newcastle. And then all of a sudden, I think we played Middlesbrough, was it? And I think we got knocked out by Middlesbrough, and that was that stupid basketball handball. I think that was the game. And we got knocked out by Middlesbrough, fucking basketball handball. And the FA Cup or something. And then Rangnick had said, oh, Lingard needed some holiday because he was upset he didn't get his move to Newcastle. And then Lingard went on Twitter and was like, blah, 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 blah. And we're like, freaking hell, like, is Rangnick lying? Is Lingard lying? How dare Lingard do this, that, that? I reckon what's going on between Lingard and Rangnick was miscommunication. Lingard said, the board said to him, all right, take extra holiday. Sorry, you didn't get your move to Newcastle. Take extra holiday. And Lingard was like, he didn't want extra holiday, he said he wanted to move to Newcastle. And they offered him extra holiday and he went, well, fine, I might as well fucking take it then. And then he said, I read in the media that I wanted extra holiday because I didn't get my move. He said he didn't want extra holiday. He just got offered it and he thought, well, I might as well take it. And I think there was a big misunderstanding there. And Lingard just said basically, you know, Rangnick was going to let him go. We know Rangnick was going to let him go. And John Murtagh pulled the plug. And, you know, Murtagh's done this with a lot of players. Murtagh's forced a lot of players to stay at United. And one thing, and I think maybe they're learning from this mistake. I hope the United board are learning from this mistake. I really hope they do. But one thing I've really noticed is that United, they used to force players to stay. They wouldn't sell Paul Pogba. They forced him to stay. They forced Bailly to stay and sign a new contract. They're forcing Lingard to stay. You know, we forced Lingard to stay. We forced Pogba to stay. And we forced Bailly to stay. And at the end of the day, it did us no good because all three of those players became increasingly unhappy at United, became toxic in the dressing room. And Murtagh and the board were continually forcing players to stay. And what I like about Ten Hag is he's like, I don't care who you are. If you don't want to be here, you can fuck off. That is Ten Hag's motto. I don't care who you are, how important you are. If Rashford turned around to Ten Hag and said, I don't want to play for United, I want to go to PSG, Ten Hag would be like, fuck off then, go to PSG. Ten Hag would want to convince him to stay. But if Rashford was generally adamant that he didn't want to be here, Ten Hag would be like, fuck off. Ollie would be like, no, I promise I'll play you. I promise I'll play you. I'll stay. And then Ollie was keeping players at United that were generally unhappy at the club, generally didn't want to be at the club. And that resulted in the toxic environment of last season. And I think Ten Hag's motto of, if you don't want to be here, I'm going to get rid of you, really helps with the dressing room. Because I think one of the reasons it got so toxic is because Lingard didn't want to be here, Bailly didn't want to be here, Pogba didn't want to be here. Why didn't we just let them go? You know, why did Ollie force Bailly to sign a new contract and tell Sancho to stay if they were not Sancho, tell Lingard to stay if they were never in his plans? I sit there and I think we just should have let them go because I just think it just ended up creating this toxic dressing room environment as well. Apparently they're buying the Brighton CM and Dumfries. How can they spend so much money? I actually do not. I think I want to talk about Chelsea, people. I want to get into news. Chelsea is spending money left, right, and centre. Chelsea have spent like 400 million. How are they doing it? How are they not breaking FFP? I'll tell you this now. Did you ever wonder why Mudryk signed like an 8-year contract at Chelsea? Okay, FFP, what Chelsea have done is they're signing players and then they're putting on really long contracts like Mudryk, 8.5 years, and they're dividing the transfer fee by the length of the contract. So you know when you if you go and buy a phone, you could pay £1,000 up front for your iPhone, or you could pay £30 a month over, I don't know, a 2-year period, let's just say. Okay. But we'll do that in football context. You can either, for your phone, you can pay £1,200 up front for your phone, or you can pay I don't know, £200 a year for that phone for 6 years. Okay, which results in pretty much just £10-15 a month. So what Chelsea are doing is they're signing Mudryk and they're putting him on an 8-year contract, and they're splitting that €100 million fee by 8 years. So they're only spending 20 million this year. So how Chelsea aren't beating FFP is because they're doing all these monthly deals, all these yearly deals. So they're paying a certain amount a year. So instead of Chelsea actually spending 400 million this year, which would put them out of FFP, they're dividing the transfer fee by a number of years. And because they're dividing a transfer fee by a number of years, they might actually only be spending 60 million. So they're not over FFP, but they will be spending 60 million continually for the next amount of years. So that is kind of the situation with Chelsea, is they're kind of buying all these players and putting them on long contracts to avoid the FFP situation. And it's a bit annoying, but I think, it's a long-term risk, because, if Todd Boehly long-term, he puts all these players on his contracts, he's going to be paying off these contracts in 5-6 years, whereas actually in 5-6 years, it might catch up to them. So it's a bit of a risk from Chelsea, but it's up to them as well. Adam says we need 2 midfielders in the summer, and 8, like De Jong or Enzo would like a ball winner. I agree. We need 2 midfielders in the summer. We need a striker in the summer. We potentially need more defensive reinforcements. Sancho will not play against Arsenal. I would be very shocked as well. And yes, Casado's a monster. I watched him in Brighton-Liverpool match. He dominated Liverpool midfield. Big fan. I'd like Moises Caicedo. My ideal transfer window: Moises Caicedo, Frankie de Jong, which I know is not going to happen, Osimhen, and probably David Raya as a potential goalkeeper, and Kim Min-jae. That would be my ideal transfer window. And Alice, would the result last night be okay without the yellow card? I think at the end of the day, I think 3 points against Palace, you want to get that. And I think the fact that you can see the goal in the 90th minute, I think the result was bad, but I think the Casemiro card felt worse. But I think it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, would I have rather Casemiro got a yellow, or would I have rather had 3 points versus Palace? I'd rather had 3 points versus Palace, because, you never know. We could get 3 points versus Arsenal without Casemiro. I think for me, the yellow's bad, but if we beat Arsenal, the yellow means fuck all. Whereas, we're never going to get those 2 points back versus Palace, but it does feel awful. 78% of you are saying you'd play Sandro Martinez at DM over Scott McTominay. I feel like we have very little confidence in Scott McTominay as a fan base. The thing about McTominay, and I've said it before and I say it again, every now and then McTominay can just turn up and put in an absolute shift. That's the thing about McTominay. Every now and then he can turn up and put in an absolute shift. But the thing is, McTominay's the type of guy who'll be crap for 10 games in a row, and you'll be average and get McTominay out. And then remember when we played Spurs and it was that game where who's going to be sacked, Oli or Nuno, when we beat Spurs 3-0, and McTominay, poof, boosh, 10 out of 10 performance, was absolutely freaking fantastic. You don't know with Scott McTominay these days. You don't know what he's going to do and all of that, do you? I do want to get into some stories, people. I do want to get into some transfer news. I do want to get into some Lingard news as well. Diego said on the game, I felt that your players were more creative in play, but Palace players worked extra hard not to let your strikers get shot on target. And Diego's right. Palace worked really hard, and our attackers were out of the Palace game as well. And Sky News has explained how Chelsea are not in breach of FFP. Give it a watch. I will give that a proper watch as well. And if Benfica get more realistic with the fee, I'd take Enzo over De Jong. 100%, me as well. But De Jong looks like he'll be half the price. But I don't think Barcelona will be selling De Jong, to be fair, as well. And Scott's been awful lately. His attributes don't suit this match versus Arsenal. And I agree. It's such a risk playing Scott McTominay with his poor form. But Caicedo or Camavinga, I'd go Caicedo because Camavinga's just moved to Real Madrid. So it'll be very, very hard. Reportedly, we might be making a signing, but I would say this is take it with a pinch of salt sauce. Should have got into this news story earlier because it's actually in the title of the video. Reportedly, United are in advanced talks to sign 6 million stars. Ten-Hag closes in on another signing. Now, obviously, the source was Tuta Meccano, which isn't the best source. For me, I always say take it with a pinch of salt. But they're quite confident in this, and they said that United are in advanced negotiations with Fulham fullback Mbabu. Now, we've been linked to Mbabu a fair bit, but I think with Wan-Bissaka's recent form, I can't see us getting a right back. He only joined Fulham 6 months ago. I don't think we'll be going for him. I say maybe there's something in this. Fabrizio Romano said if United sign another player, it probably will be a right back. We know Ten Hag wants right back reinforcement. Well, Wan-Bissaka's good form. I don't think we'll be signing this guy, but apparently United are in talks with him. I don't know if I believe it. It's to take it with a pinch of salt. Source, a couple other sources saying we're in for Mbabu. But as I've said, I think maybe in the summer we sign a right back if Ten Hag decides he doesn't want Wan-Bissaka. But I think it looks very more likely that Wan-Bissaka is going to stay after recent form, especially because Ten Hag knows that he probably won't be able to get his ideal replacement in, which is going to be Frimpong anyway. So I'll be very shocked. Thank you very much for the super chat as well, Alice. I watch your videos. I have clinical depressions, and your videos make me want to live. Still, your tactical knowledge is good and realistic, and you never overreact. Keep it up. Thanks, Harry. Appreciate the super chat. I'm glad that my videos make your day better. Really, really appreciate that as well. And hopefully, you keep enjoying the videos and all that. But thanks for the super chat, Harry. Really appreciate it, and I hope you feel better. Lissandro destroyed the Chelsea midfield. He did, going back to that Chelsea game when Lissandro Martinez got really far forward. He did. He made a massive impression on that Chelsea game, and potentially we try and play Lissandro in the midfield as well. And honestly, Sancho back, I don't think he'll play versus Arsenal, but potentially Lissandro could be really important in that midfield as well. Now, I don't think we're going to get Mbabu. I think that's to take it with a pinch of salt sauce. I think that is, it's an Italian source with not the best link saying that we're interested in this guy. I'm sure United have maybe expressed an interest in him. United have been snooting around right backs, but I very much get the impression from all the news coming in that Wan-Bissaka very much set to stay at Manchester United as well. And and obviously, obviously big up Harry, stay strong and all of that as well. I want to get into one last story. Well, actually, no, I've got two more stories to get into. There's actually some new owner news coming out that I do want to cover as well. Lissandro played DM at senior level. He can do it. He did. He hasn't played there for a while, but he did play there for Ajax as well. I do want to get into some news on new ownership because I haven't really covered it, but there was a report that came out today, and a report that came out yesterday. A report that came out yesterday from the Telegraph said the US investor Sixth Street that has been involved in a major refinancing project with European Super League rivals Real Madrid and Barcelona. So there's reportedly that Sixth Street, who invest in Real Madrid, Barcelona, investing in the Super League, were potentially interested in investing in United. The Telegraph said that Sixth Street, an American investment company, has let it be known that they're ready to invest in United. However, and this would be really bad. This would be really bad if Sixth Street wanted to invest in United because, they are a bit like Glazers. They are behind the Super League. They care about their money. They're not the kind of owners that you want at United. So I start hearing that this Sixth Street company might be investing in United and all of that. And I'm thinking this is not good. However, an official statement from Sixth Street's news said at this time, Sixth Street are not looking to buy United and have not had any discussions to do so. So there was the Telegraph, who have good sources of information, saying, this American investor, Sixth Street, are wanting to buy United, la-di-la-di-la. Sixth Street are denying that. So that is good that they're denying that. Obviously, they might be denying it for now, and then they come in and the Telegraph was right all along. You see that happen, but there's a lot of news on potentially investors from the US, and the report, and even the Times said this, and I want to go back to Twitter. I want to go back to some sort of transfer news and all of that as well. But even the Times was saying, and we go back to Twitter here. Let me get this up here. I get what the Times have started to come out and saying, and it's that basically the biggest threat to Jim Ratcliffe is the USA. Although we've been hearing a lot about the Middle East and Manchester United and all this about the Middle East this and the Middle East that and United, there's a lot of news that actually basically the biggest rivals could be the US as well. Heard a rumor that about FFP next summer might be restricted budget. I'm not 100% sure about that. I would have to keep an eye on the FFP rules. I will read up a bit more on the FFP rules for you guys if you want as well. And I'm sure Eric Ten Hag had something planned before the Crystal Palace game for Casemiro to get his fifth yellow. Potentially. Do you know what's annoying is Casemiro was about to come off. Casemiro was a minute away from coming off and Fred coming on in his place. And they got that yellow. And that's the worst thing because Casemiro was going to be subbed off. And then when he got that yellow, they were like, we might as well keep him on because you're not going to play versus Arsenal as well. But there's reports obviously saying basically that, the US are the favourites to rival Jim Ratcliffe. And this was a bit worrying. I looked at this and I went, this is a bit worrying. But I'm not super worried because if you actually look at the reports, they massively contradict each other. There's a lot of reports saying the US are the favourites, but let me go Middle East. Let me type Middle East in here. And I go from people I follow because I follow all the news people. Okay, as soon as you go from people you follow, you get stories saying the Glazers are poised to invite formal bids for clubs by prospective mid-February deadline after receiving serious takeover interest from the Middle East. Middle East, Asia, and America. Again, the aim is a quarter sale. There's one source saying, America are more likely than the Middle East to get United. But then I read all these things, and again, they're saying another source, James Ducker, saying Middle East are in for United as well. Another source again, the Middle East are in for United. So, for me, I think, I have to say, do I want the Middle East over Americans? Potentially, yes. But what I want for United owners is for them to be interested in it as well. It was also said they're not the first to register their interest with the New York Merchant Bank overseeing the sale, with groups from America, the Middle East, and Asia already formally entertaining the process. But there's a lot of news that the Middle East are also interested in United. Amazon potentially, but Apple and Musk are not in the market for United. Although US are interested, they're not potentially in the market as well. United beat Arsenal 3-0. I'd be very shocked, but if we can beat Arsenal 3-0, people, that would be absolutely fantastic as well. Guys, keep smashing the like button, and of course subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new. We've still got a bit more to get into. I do want to get into some of the things that Jesse Lingard had said in his interview as well. Jesse Lingard has said that it was kind of very dark at United towards the end. He did turn to drinking, which is something he very regrets. And Lingard did say that Jose Mourinho was the best manager in the world. He just wants to win. Had that mad management as well as belief in him that he went to the World Cup because of him. He had one of his best seasons. And Lingard actually said that Jose Mourinho was one of the best managers. And I think, obviously every player has a preference. Lingard said on which manager he felt the most control. And he said under Sir Alex Van Gaal probably had the most control of the dressing room, very tactical. But he said that his favourite was obviously Mourinho. So, Lingard obviously messed up falling out with Ole and Rangnick because Lingard does praise Van Gaal and Lingard does praise Mourinho, but Lingard's got not many nice words to say about Ole as well. Also, United youngster Shola Sholatiri is set to join Brighton on loan at the end of the season. So, Bolton. Brighton would be a good mood. Bolton is going to Bolton on loan to the end of the season as well. So, a little bit of news on that for you guys as well. And then investment companies like that just want to make money, don't trust their intention. 100% agree with Alex B here. There's a few investment companies in for United. And as I said, and as Alex B said, you can't trust their intention. All these investment companies going in for United and that, it worries me. It worries me a little bit because I'm like, they just want to make money out of the club. They just want to be Glazers 2.0. So, yeah, I think the investment companies going in for United, we want people that want to come in and be full owners, not invest in the club as well. And whoever the bidders are, we need to know their intentions. People go on about revenue and net worth, but we want to know their intentions and how and what we spend on the club. And Alex B's spot on here. It's not just about who's got the most money. It's who actually wants to make this club, who wants to invest in the stadium, who wants to invest in the team. Who's got a plan, who's going to sack the board. We want someone that's going to treat us like Man City's owners treat them, or what Newcastle's owners are doing, or what, we want good owners. We don't want some American owner that will spend money like, Todd Boehly's got good intentions, I think, but we want someone with maybe Todd Boehly's intentions, but a bit more common sense than him when it comes to spending money. We want someone that we're like, they care about the team. They care about the squad. They want to make Manchester United good as well. 150 likes, guys. Can we hit 200 likes by the end of the video? It'd be really appreciated if we can hit 200 likes. So please do go ahead and smash that like button if you have not already and push for the 200 like target as well. That very close to that. And of course, do subscribe down below if you're new as well. Share the video and all of that. I do want to go back onto the OneFootball app to go over the final story because I saw something on the OneFootball app that I wanted to get up for you people. And I wanted to show you. Oh, here we go. And it was basically said, obviously, Jadon Sancho spotted in training. Obviously, lots of news here, as I said. But if I can find it as well. Where is the I can't find the story I wanted to get up quickly. Casemiro, big blow. But when Casemiro available next for suspension, he's available after the Arsenal game. But they had some statistics on. They had a really good article, and I can't find it, on how United could beat Arsenal without Casemiro as well, which for some reason I can't find. It's completely disappeared, but it is what it is. Can we find it here? Probably not. Probably not. I love how as soon as I'm trying to find something live, I can't find it. I mean, Eric Ramsey to Blackpool, their story's going out. I can't find what I want to find now. Oh yeah, this might have been it. Oh, this isn't it. But anyway, this is relevant. Manchester United boss Erik ten Hag has already proven that he doesn't need Casemiro to beat Arsenal because he didn't in the first round. But I can't find the article I was going to get into. So I do apologise for that. But Dubai owners would be good. Newcastle have the richest owners. It's absolutely crazy as well. And Abramovich went and put terms in place to help Chelsea's future. Glazers don't care at all. Exactly. Abramovich, he wanted to make sure that Chelsea got good new owners. We know the Glazers, unfortunately, won't do that for Manchester United, which is a shame. But people, please do smash that like button. And, of course, go ahead and subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new. I couldn't find that last story I wanted to get into, so I do apologise. But I am going to wrap up the live stream here. I am going to end the live stream here. Make sure you subscribe if you're new. There will be a video tomorrow and probably a live stream tomorrow evening as well. I go live most evenings on the channel. I probably go live 5 out of 7 evenings a week, and I do a video every single day. If there's any breaking news, obviously I go live as well. Video, live streams, all of that. Stay up to date on all of that on the Alice Talks Football YouTube channel. So big up everyone that tuned into today's video. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Trafford would be nice, wouldn't it? And bye.